Hey everybody, Scott here. Going over the scenario number 3 for Aviation 326. It's an interesting scenario of the flight legs being a little bit longer, or as they say in the scenario, significantly longer than expected. So first of all, I'll start with the POH. The POH is what we go by to plan our trip, which gives us all the numbers and data that we use to plan for this stuff. So the POH is done by professional test pilots that, for lack of better terms, fly perfectly. And so as a student pilot myself, I'm pretty much the exact opposite of that. I don't fly perfectly. I make lots of mistakes because I'm inexperienced, and even though I'm learning still, and I have a few cross countries under my belt, and there's a little bit of experience there, I'm definitely not perfect, especially to the level of the POH performance characteristics. So as far as comparing my trip to those, I'm going to get longer climb outs. I'm going to get longer en route climbs. I'm going to get longer ground rolls. I'm going to get more fuel burn. There's going to be a lot of stuff that I missed the mark on. Sure, I'm going to try and be perfect, but I'm not going to be the best and perfect leaned aircraft in cruise because I'm not perfect. And so as far as that goes, that could be one part of it. And I would fall under the pilot part of this scenario. So I'm imperfect. So that's going to be a contributing factor. Another immediate thought that I had when I read this scenario had to do with the environment, and that's your headwind. You have a long, hard, strong headwind directly at you, and it's worse than you anticipated. And so that's, probably the most logical explanation for a longer trip time. One thing that you could do if you have the capability in your aircraft is to look up the winds aloft forecast. It might be that you just need to climb 2,000 feet and your headwind will disappear, or descend if you're able to, and it'll disappear or get better. And so that's something that you can do on the fly, and just to make it a little bit easier on yourself. The external pressures don't really come to play unless you start noticing that you're going to be eating into your reserve time when you land. And so when you planned your trip, you didn't leave much margin of error for fuel. And so on this longer trip, you're using more fuel. And so now, instead of having, the flight school's 1 hour recommended of reserves, you are going to have 45 minutes or 30 minutes. And so what you would need to do at that point is check your external pressures and say, am I trying to push this to prove that I can do something, or do I just need to land in a little bit and get some gas and keep going? So that would be something to consider, is the external pressures there that would force you into doing something that's just straight up unintelligent. So that is something to consider as far as this scenario. If you did an adequate pre-flight and you're very comfortable with the aircraft, you probably, you're not really worried about something malfunctioning within the mechanics of the aircraft. You can listen. We as commercial pilots have kind of picked up what the aircraft is supposed to sound like, and feel like, and run like, and we can use those sensories to pick up if everything's running smoothly. And so if something's not running smoothly, it's running rough, it's just not performing the way you thought it would, I definitely keep an eye on your fuel burn. Make sure that it's not disappearing too quickly. Make sure your oil pressure and oil temperature and the engine instruments are staying in the green. And if that's the case, then I think it would be all right to just check your wind and change altitudes. But that's kind of what I would go with there. And if the problem still persists, just get on the ground and land. No one is, you're the pilot in command, so you're the one making the decision to continue on. And the decision is there, it's yours. You can make that decision to not continue on, to land, and to play it safe. Maybe you could, if you're in the air, call your instructor or your chief flight instructor and say, hey, I'm having these problems. I'm in this area. Is there an airport that you recommend within 20 minutes, 10 minutes that I can land at that has some aircraft maintenance hangars that I can go to, and we can just leave the airplane here for a little while? But that's just a couple of options that I've had and I think about. But as far as longer than usual, longer than planned legs, I would imagine that it's pretty much your headwind. And if not, I would get down on the ground and get a tech or someone more intelligent with more experience to talk it through with you before continuing on. Hope it helps, guys.